The morning sun glinted off the surface of the murky water, casting shimmering reflections across what had once been a perfectly paved parking space. Now, it was a soggy mess, half swallowed by an unintended koi pond, and right in the middle of it sat Karen's white luxury SUV, its rear tires sunken deep, hazard lights blinking weakly like a dying firefly. Around the scene, a growing crowd of HOA board members stood bickering on the sidewalk, their voices echoing across the otherwise serene Willowbrook Estates cul-de-sac. I stood on my porch, coffee in hand, arms folded across my chest. I didn't smile. I didn't gloat. I just watched, because I had warned them. And now Karen, our tyrant, Pearls was quite literally knee-deep in the consequences of her arrogance. But let me back up. My name is Rick, and I've been a resident of Willowbrook Estates for a little over 5 years. It's one of those picture-perfect neighborhoods that looks like it was designed by a Stepford algorithm. Lawns are trimmed to exactly 2.5 inches. Fences must be painted in one of 3 approved shades. Even the mailbox style has to pass committee review. The HOA here operates with more rigor than a military barracks, except, of course, when it comes to holding its own president accountable. Karen had been HOA president for 3 years by the time our little war began. Imagine a woman in her late 40s, obsessed with control. She wore tailored pantsuits even on Saturdays, drove a pristine white SUV that glistened no matter the weather, and treated her clipboard like a royal scepter. Her favorite way to start any sentence was, "As HOA president, I believe," followed inevitably by something that benefited her and no one else. It started small. Every townhouse has a clearly marked parking space, mine being spot number 23, located right in front of my unit. Karen lived in unit number 47, a good 30-second walk farther from the community center, where she liked to hold her court. Apparently, that inconvenience was unacceptable. The first time I found her SUV in my spot, I gave her the benefit of a doubt. I left a polite note on her windshield. The second time, I knocked on her door. She greeted me with a sugar-sweet smile and chirped, "Oh, Rick, I'm sure you understand being HOA president means. I need quick access to the community center in case of emergencies. I'm sure visitor packing will do for just this once." Except, just this once became a regular thing. Every Tuesday for board meetings. Every Thursday for her book club. Random Saturdays when she inspected the property. By month 2, she was parking in my spot more than I was. I voiced complaints to the board. Karen would smile sympathetically during meetings and promise to look into it, then immediately move on to more important matters, like whether hanging wind chimes violated noise regulations or if bird feeders attracted unauthorized wildlife. I started documenting everything. Photos with timestamps, emails she ignored, even video clips from my doorbell camera, showing her car in my space while I circled looking for visitor packing. My folder of evidence grew thick. My patience wore thin. That's when I decided to dig deeper literally. I took a trip to the county records office. Willowbrook's property lines were quirky, remnants of a decades-old development plan. That's when I found something remarkable. My assigned parking spot actually overlapped my property line by 3 feet. An old surveying error, never corrected, meant I technically owned part of the asphalt that Karen loved to occupy. I had an idea. First, I hired a certified surveyor to confirm the lines. Then I did my homework. City ordinances allowed private landscaping on one's own property, as long as it met code and had proper permits. The HOA had no jurisdiction over privately owned land if local law was followed. So I filed for a permit to install a decorative koi pond. I drew up plans that included a narrow water feature, just 3 feet wide, but stretching the full length of the parking space. I submitted detailed drawings, consulted a landscape architect, and even paid extra for expedited approval. The city gave the green light without hesitation. After all, who would oppose beautifying a boring stretch of asphalt? Construction began while Karen was away at an HOA leadership conference in Phoenix. The crew worked fast excavating the 3-foot strip, installing a rubber liner, edging it with polished stones, and finishing it with a bubbling fountain. It was serene, tasteful, and crucially legal. On 3 sides, I installed low, ornamental fencing. The 4th side, facing the parking lot, remained open but marked by a chain and a tasteful sign that read, "Private property. No trespassing. Pond area." When Karen returned, her fury was cinematic. She stomped up to my door in a crimson blazer, dripping disdain. "What is this monstrosity?" She shrieked loud enough for 3 neighbors to peek through blinds. I kept my tone even and polite. "It's a koi pond. On my private property. Fully permitted." The city loved the design, said it could even increase property value. Her face shifted between shades of pink and purple. "You can't do this. That's a parking spot." "Was a parking spot," I corrected. "My survey shows the 3-foot portion is mine. The HOA space is untouched, just narrower now." She tried everything to make me reverse it. Called in city inspectors. Brought it up in board meetings. Even had an HOA attorney review my permits. Each time, she hit a wall. I was well within my rights. Other residents actually praised the pond. Mrs. Chun from Unit 19 asked for my landscaper's number. The pond, it seemed, was a hit. Karen chose defiance over defeat. She continued packing there, squeezing her SUV in at an angle. Her rear tires rested dangerously close to the water's edge, sometimes even crossing the chain. I added more signs, installed solar lights to outline the pond, and reinforced the border with decorative stones. She ignored them. Then came the summer storm. Rain fell hard and fast, one of those freak thunderstorms that flood streets in minutes. I was relaxing inside when I heard it, a splash, followed by a mechanical grinding noise. I looked out to see Corinne's SUV tilted at a comical angle. Her rear tires had collapsed to softened edge of the pond and sunk into the muddy water. The SUV was half submerged, lights blinking wildly as rain poured down around it. I grabbed my umbrella and phone and walked over calmly. Corinne was standing in the downpour, soaked and furious, yelling into her phone. When she saw me, she pointed a shaking finger. "You did this. This is sabotage. I'm calling the police." "I recommend it," I replied evenly. "They'll need to know why your vehicle is on my posted private property." Chaos followed. Police officers arrived. HOA board members showed up in response to Corinne's frantic group text. A tow truck driver stood scratching his head, muttering that extracting the SUV would almost certainly cause damage. Officer Martinez took statements while his partner photographed the scene. I handed over my folder surveys, permits, documentation, complaint history, everything. Karen's story changed repeatedly. First, it was an emergency. Then she was temporarily parked. Finally, she claimed she'd misunderstood the property lines. "Ma'am," Officer Martinez said patiently, "even in emergencies, you can't park on clearly marked private property. The owner would be within his rights to press charges." By now, a crowd had gathered. That's when board member David cleared his throat. "Karen, we've received several complaints about misuse of your position. Maybe it's time we talk about your role here." Karen froze. "You can't be serious," she gasped. "I've dedicated 3 years to this community." "And in those 3 years," Mrs. Chun cut in, You fined me for a flower pot that was 1 inch too tall. You cited the Johnsons for their daughter's tricycle being visible. Yet here you are trespassing, damaging property, and abusing your power. More neighbors chimed in. Complaints poured out like floodwater. Eventually, the SUV was dragged free, leaving a trail of muddy pond water and shredded landscaping. The tow cost $800. Her SUV had over $3,000 in water damage. My pond restoration? $1,500, all of which she was liable for. Per the police report. The emergency HOA meeting lasted 12 minutes. The vote to remove her as president? Unanimous. But it didn't stop there. Our bylaws required board members to uphold exemplary conduct. Her ousting triggered a full audit. Turns out, Karen had used AI funds, almost $2,000, over 3 years for property maintenance, which included monthly luxury car washes. 3 months later, she stood in court, no clipboard, no suit, just a plain dress and a downturned gaze. The judge handed down 2 years probation, ordered restitution, and fined her $5,000. Her real estate license was suspended, pending further review. As the sentence was read, Karen stood frozen, mouth opening and closing like the koi. I'd eventually restock in my freshly rebuilt pond. No one spoke for her. No one stood by her. The self-appointed queen of the HOA had fallen, and this time, no amount of clipped hedges or smug authority could save her.